patterns for existing coaches. It's an incredibly important spot for Metro. We're talking about grade separation to the trail from Mont Lake. But we're also talking about cycle tracks now. And when you start off with some new idea, or at least for this, you want to do it in a place where the pattern of use is somewhat familiar. Mont Lake, between 520 and Heck Evans and Pavilion at the Triangle, people have been riding that like it's been a cycle track for decades because of the bridge. You have to ride the sidewalk unless you really want to ride the grade of the bridge, which is not my cup of tea. And for years and years, it was the one place I would ride on a sidewalk for a living. Okay, here's a place where we can develop a cycle track, and people will use it intuitively. One potential place to start. It fits with what transit wants to do. Transit and Metro is the shining star with bringing bikes to buses. It was so cool to go tripping around Europe, and in 4 capitals, I saw the same bus rack that was built in Woodford, that was developed by Metro on coaches throughout Europe. It matters. The numbers matter. It matters to transit agencies. It matters to mobility. It makes transit work. We keep forgetting to say it. So that's one I want you to watch.
So why else? Because we're doing them already. They're in 45 states, 5 provinces, tons of them in California. They're not the same model of cycle track that New York is doing, but they are side paths, they are wide sidewalks where bicycling is allowed or encouraged. They're not really well designed necessarily, but there are people out there already doing this stuff all over the place because there's a latent demand for it. So this is a survey that we did as part of our work with the Institution of Transportation Engineers. It's coming out with an informational report on side paths and cycle tracks later this year. The question is, what's your opinion on separated bikeways? And there's 43% of the respondents that said they are preferable to on-street facilities. And Phil said he's surprised the number wasn't higher, 55% saying appropriate only in limited circumstances. But this is something to think about. I guarantee you that 43% is engineers at state DOTs, is city traffic engineers, this is ITE's constituency. The survey results, as I looked through them, sort of backed up what my assumption was. These are the people who are making the design decisions about cycle tracks and side paths. And they're not necessarily designing them because for transportation, they're designing them because they believe in their heart of hearts that it's safer and that bicyclists should be separate from traffic. So it's really important to start talking about what is the best toolkit for cycle tracks and side paths, how should they be designed and where, because as they begin to sort of proliferate, you just have different groups of folks making design decisions based on their judgment. How important a role do you think separated bikeways have or could have in making cycling more mainstream and popular? Over half, 75% said they were either critical or really important in their response. And then should separated bikeways be included in design manuals? 65% say yes with proper criteria, and then another 21% just say yes. So overwhelming desire from communities across the U.S. for some kind of guidance about this type of facility. Absolutely not. I bet I even know who said that. Why should we figure out how to do these things? Prevention or design. So if you didn't read the sign, then by the time you got there, you might actually just dismount involuntarily. Sign right in the middle of the cycle track. This is in Sparks, Nevada. And when I say that there's a latent demand for this stuff and people have been itching for somebody to stick their neck out and do it so they could go ahead, this is what we're talking about. This sign says bike lane here. And it is now illegal for cyclists to ride on the street next to this facility because that's what's in their code. So cyclists can't ride on the street anymore, but look at how many driveway cuts there are. And this thing is not that wide. It's probably 8 feet wide. And if you're looking at how much money and how much infrastructure went into this when they could have perhaps gotten in a bike lane instead, It's just, I mean, the street carries, I don't know, 15, 16,000 vehicles a day. It's not a busy street for most cyclists. So, all right. So before we talk about how to design one, it's getting to 1 o'clock. I want to maybe open it up a little bit. If you guys have questions or comments or anything like that before we go through.
So is that the general move? You put in a cyclotrack, you make it illegal to ride on the street, is that the case in Denmark?
Most definitely. Absolutely. And again, going back to Boyd's experience, again, he drove him crazy because he just was itching to stick a hand out and make a left turn. He couldn't do it. And that is the quid pro quo of having separation for them, is that they've got to have a very regimented approach to intersections and interchanges. And so, yeah, you see that quite frequently. Is that something that we can tolerate here is, I think, an open question.
First comment on the last question. Yeah, they're bad, but they're there. And New York's there. They're testimony. They're there. And then our kind of not doing anything, so it's proven about 20 times. Probably everything in.
Yeah.
But the other question I have is you talked about environmental review. Is paint subject to environmental as well?
You mean how New York got theirs done?
No, I'm just talking about if you came up with something, just say Nickerson.
If you are taking capacity away from vehicles, then yes, it's subject to environmental review. If you're not, then no, you can get what's called a categorical exemption.
I think anymore there's more of a predilection to do at least the checklist of yourselves do. 20 years ago, we used to use those categorical exemptions and but we're trying much more, I think, significantly cheeky approaches on design than we used to, and we're getting pushback now on all these items. It's in everyone's interest to do the checklist, to go through the process, so much make.
Your slide in Brooklyn had a one-way vehicular street, two-way cycle track, only 4 feet in each direction. That would be narrow.
Well, 8 feet is the absolute minimum for a bike-only facility, right? And you're supposed to have a buffer on either side. That's if you're just talking about a trail, a bike-only trail. They, I don't think, did a very good job at right-sizing it for the number of cyclists that they are going to expect, because it's absolutely narrow. When you stand out there and watch people try and negotiate it, you've got riders of all abilities and all speeds. It gets really, there's a lot of near misses.
And speaking of that, we have a lot of grade here. So are there examples of these two-way tracks going down grade like we have in Seattle, like coming off Dexter, for example? Someone might be climbing at 8 miles an hour, someone's flying by at 30.
Funny you should mention that. We do have some designs on facilities that are going to be reviewed in the next year or so. I'd probably say